Hundreds of people have died and have been killed or kidnapped by bandits in Zamfara State. There have been suspicions that criminality is a fallout of the artisanal mining of gold and lead in the state. The new measure banning mining was announced by the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, on Sunday in Abuja. But how will this solve the security issues in the state? Well, joining me in the studio to discuss this, I have Ambassador Roy Ohidebe. He is a security expert. It's good to have you join us, Ambassador Roy.
Thank you very
and of
much.
course, we are being joined also by Mr. Stephen Agiode. He's a legal practitioner and a member of ACT. It's good to join you, sir.
My pleasure.
It's good to have you here. All right, so I'll start with the antecedents of this. But first things first, it's a question that I have been playing with in my head. Why do governments or our leadership in this country always wait for situations to boil over, or maybe for us to protest and carry placards, and it looks more like there is no way out for them to start dealing with security issues such as banditry? And I mean, even cultism, issues that we could have nipped in the bud before it boiled over. So I'll start with you because you're the security expert, Ambassador Roy. Why?
Yeah, you see, one thing I've always opined is that the value of the greatest assets that we have in life is life. The value of every country is life, the life of the citizen. Now, when you talk about the life of the citizen being taken, and nobody brings any immediate action, hula baloo, and who cry and say we must solve these matters now, until it now spills over to millions of deaths, thousands of deaths into other states, and high-profile persons start getting attacked and injured and kidnapped. Then you will now hear the government clamping down on this and that. Why didn't they do it when one died, two died? That is the question. Now let me tell you about when you talk about responsibility and penalties. Any government official, whether you are in charge of the police, you are in charge of the army, you are in charge of the judiciary, any government official that is in a position to curb any incident that will take the life of a citizen and is not held responsible, and is even called into a committee to be looking for solutions how to solve the issue that has gone haywire, then that is where the problem is. Because if I'm responsible for an action I didn't take, and I didn't come out to say I did this because of lack of logistics, I could not meet this because of shortage of manpower, I could not do this because my men were not properly motivated, and I did not resign after I see people die, then there is a problem, and it will continue until people are held accountable when there is loss of life. We should dig in to find out who did not do what.
Okay, Barrister Stephen, I just, I'd like to tell you, this is one of the most ridiculous things I've heard in 2019, that a governor of a state, in a bid to solve the problem of banditry and the killings of people, has involved charmers to fight, whatever it is. And we're in the 21st century. And from what we know, from what we gather, Zamfara's issue has been ongoing. It's happened for a long time. Is getting snake charmers the best way to solve this situation? Is this us just taking 10 or 1,000 steps backwards?
The answer is quite obvious. I mean, what do you want to do with snake charmers?
Maybe they have IT, some technology we do not have access to.
We don't have access. It's unfortunate. The governor, Governor Yari, has over time displayed a level of incompetence in his handling of the affairs of that state. It's very unfortunate. This is the same state where, in response to a plague of illness, the other day he said it was caused by
God. Yes, he said for all the evils that had been happening in the state. Another ridiculous thing.
It speaks also to our problems. There's a level of illiteracy in our society that needs to be addressed. We have a situation where we have 67% of our people illiterate. In Zamfara State, because of all this, you have The school start figures, I understand, the number of people who took school start in that state are just 28.
28?
28. So you can see the problem with that state. You can see that the governor is exploiting the ignorance of his own people. That's what is happening.
I'm just wondering, when we talk about, yes, the one-eyed king in the land of the blind, yes, but there are other people who live in that state, yes, who may not necessarily be from the Zamfara state. Yes. That government also has, I'm sure, advisors who may not necessarily be as backward as you would, want to make them look. What should be the responsibilities of those people in advising the government? I'm guessing also we have NGOs and, civil societies in that state. I don't want to believe that that state is a dead end. What are they all doing in also bringing to the attention of not just government, but the rest of the world, that there is a dearth of some form of information or access to information on how to deal with this situation? Well,
I still come back to the problem of education. If you have a huge deficit of education like you have in that state, in Nigeria in general, then in particular in that state, you can't expect much. You can't expect much. What happens is that the elite, the politicians, exploit the ignorance of the people in order to come to office and to stay in office. And that's really the problem that we are having.
Ambassador?
Well, let me come from a different angle. You see, because I'm embarrassed the way Nigerians behave, I inclusive, okay? Now, if you have a state where there's an irresponsible government and making irresponsible statements and taking actions that also lead to more loss of lives, you want to tell me that, like what you are saying, that some people, lawyers and other committee of friends, concerned citizens, cannot come together, put money together and institute a case in the courts against the government from statutory ignorance, statutory responsibility, citing cases where a governor is supposed to have taken action or done XYZ and it was not done, and to stop the action of this kind of irresponsibility of calling chairmans. Now, if you also look at the area of our actions that does not show, you see, that's why I don't like it when Nigerians don't consult. You have a doctor, you have a lawyer, why don't you have a security consultant? Why people don't think that they should have a security consultant that should mentor them on the things they should do, actions they should take that should lead to their own security? People go to Abuja, they leave their states to go and buy houses. They go to the town in Lagos. There's a new town coming up in Lagos now, Eco Atlantic. So many big men are going there to buy houses. By the time you try to go back to your community, you will just meet the whole community full of miscreants, full of kidnappers, bandits, and they'll take you away or take your children
So
away.
you're saying what's happening in Zamfara is as a result of the fact that the people who are supposed to be spearheading peace in the communities have abandoned it?
We can't leave it for the government. We have people that were elites in their academics. We have people that are elites in their professionalism. We have people that could stand up against government. Because the army of ignorant youths that we are building today, the police cannot contain them. The army cannot contain them. Now we have said the federal government just said every foreigner should leave.
Yes.
Okay, once the foreigner leaves, you will be shocked that you still have those well-tutored in criminality that are still your citizens that you have not taken care of. So the more we continue to ignore our responsibilities for education, kindergarten care and concern for little children growing up, showing them how to behave, what are the statutory activities that you engage their mind to make it productive, then we are just killing ourselves. Because by the end of the day, you will see that everybody around you, even those that will come again to join the army, the police, that will wear the same uniform, they have been corrupted from youth.
This is sad, but then we did have some videos of the famous Kadaria Ahmed. She had some not interesting things to say about the governor of Zamfara State. She used some very colorful words. Let's take a listen.
We're here to tell the government and those that are in charge of security that Zamfara lives matter. Every time there are issues in other places, we come out, we protest, we march. And now that it is right at our own doorstep, we have to also come out and protest and march. Our people are being killed like they are flies, and it doesn't seem to matter to anybody. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're marching.
Now, there is a government in place in the States. Are we saying that that government has not done well enough?
As far as I'm concerned, that government is the most useless governor in the history of Nigeria.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Quote me.
You're right.
He is the most useless governor in the history of Nigeria. This is a governor whose reaction to the killings in his state was to resign as chief security officer.
Oh, yes.
He went on the record to say that he cannot be chief security officer.
Yes.
So I don't know what he's still doing in office. He doesn't care. He only cares about the people of Zamfara when it comes to politics.
Yes.
That's the only thing that matters to him. The fact that they're getting killed doesn't matter. He lives most of his life here in Zamfara, in Abuja. How can you govern a state for 8 years from Abuja? What sort of leadership is that?
That is a shit.
We're so happy he's on his way out.
Yes.
He's hopeless as a leader. He has not done well for our people. So under him, Zamfara has deteriorated. I grew up in Zamfara. A lot of people here don't understand when we talk about the Zamfara we grew up in because they don't know it. The Zamfara I grew up in was peaceful. It was affluent. We had businesses, we had gineries, we had tanneries, we had textile, we had oil mills, we had sweet factories.
But everything's
Where
down.
are they now?
They're down.
And it is down to him and his godfather.
So what are we asking now?
We are asking for Muhammadu Buhari,
To speak up.
the president of Nigeria, to show the people of Zamfara the same regard they have shown for him.
Of Nigeria.
For 2 elections now, they've come out in large numbers to vote for him. Can he, for goodness sake, show that he also cares about them? Can he provide security so that we can sleep in our homes?
Yes.
If this government, these politicians cannot do it, can we declare a state of emergency?
Yes. Better.
So that we can go to our homes. We can't visit home. I haven't been home in over a year because they kidnap you from your house. Then they...
She's not happy. She's very, 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 very vocal, and she, wow. But then let's talk solutions, because if the people of Zamfara are that hurt, of course, fathers must have been, have lost their children, husbands have lost wives, and all kinds of things. But again, I want to bring us to our attention the fact that the federal government had not said anything about this. Mr. President has done 4 years and is about to do another 4 years, and had not for once spoken about this issue. And this is one of the reasons why people went on this protest. The federal government and the state government playing the ostrich. Is it a case of who screams the loudest? Because Mr. President was quick to talk about the killing of Kolade Johnson, and I'm not in any way saying that is not important, because we're talking about the value of lives here. But Zamfara's case has been on over and over and over again. So let's talk about solutions. How do we, because as far as I'm concerned, you talked about the fact that it begins from molding, the child up to when he becomes an adult. Where do we start to nip this in the bud? Because it has gone bad. It's almost like a fish that is already rotten from the head. How do we deal with it? Yeah. I'll start with you.
Okay. We have to take a historical perspective to this. Zamfara State has had a history of, perhaps one should just call it lawlessness. Executive lawlessness. The previous governor in that state declared Sharia law. The president in the constitution has the tools at hand to deal with executive lawlessness by state governors. That was around 1999 when Obasanjo was in power. What he ought to have done was to declare a state of emergency. There is clear provisions in section 305 of the Constitution which allows the president, where there is clear and present danger or imminence of clear and present danger in the state, for the president to directly declare a state of emergency. If the governor does not do so, all he answers to is that he then has to approach the Senate and the House of Reps, and I don't think those ones will be irresponsible. The Constitution gives our president enormous powers to act. And if when Obasanjo was in power, he did act. There would have been a precedent for acting when governors misbehave. Now we have a situation where another governor is misbehaving now. He started by saying he is not the chief security officer.
He resigned.
He resigned as a chief security. That's a clear abdication of duty. That means at that point there was no.
But some other people would say, would make the excuse of the fact that he's just a chief security officer on paper, because every other security agency that is represented in the state gets his orders from the center, which is in Abuja. So yes, the governor is just the chief security officer in name, and then maybe he's a bit overwhelmed.
I don't think,
maybe.
I do not think he is that helpless. He operates under a system which is what we use all over the federation. And other governors have found ways of handling state commissioners. They have found ways politically of, after all, he's a member of your cabinet. They found ways to do that. I just think that in that state there's a total collapse of executive responsibility. And Yari is simply following a tradition of taking advantage of laxity at presidential level, which did not start today.
That's interesting. I'll come back to you, Ambassador Roy. Now, you have been a security official. You have fought in wars. You know how these things are supposed to work. But you also did mention that the security officials in Zamfara State are somewhat overwhelmed, and they cannot deal with the rot that is already in society, being that, number one, ignorance plays a role. The fact that also maybe poverty and government somewhat abandoning their responsibility to the people, all of this plays a role. So where do we start security-wise in solving this problem? Sending the foreigners away, and you know, the police IG asking that that they're going to have an operation. I mean, in fact, we got a report saying that 16 police officers were killed so far, and they're going to, God forbid, they might lose more people. But this is the situation that security officials are facing. They have a JTF, but what about the security formations that are there on their own? What can they do?
Okay, I will continue from where he stopped. He stopped at the point where the executive and the state government, there are issues between who will perform, when to perform, and all the laxity involved. In Western climes, when a life is lost, that is a national tragedy. Okay? It is no more a state government affair. If any Nigerian dies in anywhere in Nigeria, the responsibility to act immediately leaves the state government's purview, because that person is a patriotic citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
But that doesn't happen in this part of the world.
So let's take it from there now. In that light, I will give you a short-term and a long-term action for this whole system failure we are seeing now. Let's look at the long-term action first. The long-term action should come in 3 stages. Number 1, it is every child born till when the child could walk, run, play, and talk. At that kindergarten, primary to secondary school level, the government should be fully involved in that child. That child should be taken care of like the phones our senators carry. They should be taken care of like the children of the executive arm of government. Those children should be recognized at that stage as the babies of the federal government. Once you follow that in long term, you now move to the middle class, the working class citizens of Nigeria. The government is supposed to follow through with that and see that that working class of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, they must be deployed to get jobs that are commensurate to what their capacity could deploy. They should be seen not to be shortchanged out of jobs. There should be sanity in the public sector where everybody gets what they are supposed to get. Then the third phase are those that are the elites. everyone that has wealth must be able to account for the wealth. You don't just flaunt wealth anyhow like that. In fact, Nigerians should be held to the stage where they will be taking their wealth to Ghana or any other place to go and pose with it. You cannot just build houses here all of a sudden. Government should ask, how did you make your money? You can't just come up with all of that. That is a long-term strategy.
But quickly, government should ask, I'm guessing, the big houses, the big spenders, they're mostly politicians. And hence the reason why there's so much tussle for power every other day, because that seems to be the biggest business in Nigeria. So who's going to...
It's the short-term strategy will solve that. I've given you the long-term strategy. For short-term strategy, immediate action, IA, is this. You form immediate executive orders concerning kidnapping, concerning arson, banditry, and you release mobile courts to immediately constitute a legal system that will assign executive judicial penalties to that crime. It's a crime. So if also it now ties to, it's this person that sent us, we got guns from these persons, the police should be given the free hand and the enabling logistics to raise evidence against such persons that have been fueling all this banditry, drug pushing. We have heard of mineral resources now, all of that. Now, once you start that executive orders, you go and raise those cases that have been sleeping about people. Evans, the kidnapper, that case is still pending right now. All of these kidnapping cases, banditry cases, must have executive speed.
I wish I could let you go on, gentlemen, but we're out of time. Unfortunately, we need to wrap this up because of time. But I think we probably have to put together a seminar to, for long-term and short-term plans. But I want to thank you very much, Ambassador Roy Ohidive, and of course, Barrister Stephen Agiode. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Sometime soon we will talk about this again, and maybe we'll talk at length. All right, still Plus Politics. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we're still talking about the state of insecurity across the country. You don't want to miss it. Cult gangs raid communities in River State. Armed bandits riding on motorcycles descended on a village in Kaduna State on Saturday, killing, kidnapping and injuring residents before setting their properties on fire. Now, 10 killed in renewed Tiv-Jukun clash. The spotlight is on Zamfara, not just on Zamfara, but every other state across the Federation. Apparently, there is growing insecurity. And of course, joining me to have this conversation, I have Mr. Francis Chilaka. He's the Programs Director, Kuth Foundation, and he's also a political analyst. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you very much.
And we also have Barrister Raymond Nkanebe. He's joining us also. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to start with you, Francis. I got the story of River State. It didn't necessarily come to me as a shock because I have lived there. I have woken up to a headless body before. This is also from renewed cult clashes. So there's allegedly this myth that every cult that has a person in government wants to have, you know, more of a supremacy battle. You know, we have somebody in the government, so we need to run the town. So sudden bus stops or markets, you know, they go there and say, pay us, but now we run this place. You don't pay your money for today, you know, stuff like that. And we also go to Plateau State, where there's for the Tiv guys who have had issues over and over again. And Kaduna State, people on bikes, raising, you know, so it just looks like we have pockets of violence everywhere in the country, whether we believe it or not. Akwa Ibom State, the cultists recently sent a message to the governor saying, you haven't come to, you know, settle us, the boys. You have to come and pay homage, or else we will start. And they were brandishing guns. Same thing for Cross River, cultists and kidnappers. A journalist was taken from his doorstep in the morning when he was going to read the news, kidnapped and killed. So where do we start to deal with these issues? Have we, like I said earlier on, been playing the ostrich the whole time, and now we have a problem on our hands?
I think the first thing first is to outlaw all these cult groups. It's very, very important. You cannot have a cult group working side by side a government, and it doesn't make sense for any government or any governor to cover them or to hide them. But I think this cult thing it's been around. It's been in schools and all of that. But I think the government has not done what they should do. The first thing first is outlaw it. When you outlaw something, it becomes a crime if you're caught. And then when people get arrested for cultism, we only hear the news on TV and it ends there. No prosecution, nothing happens after that. So, I think the government has lost it. And then the state governors too have completely lost it. Something is wrong with our security architecture. So we need to go back to the drawing board. It's either the federal government is not doing what they're supposed to do, or the state government, they don't even care about the people anymore. So something is wrong. And to start with cultism, the first thing is to outlaw it. And anybody who is caught, getting involved in cultism, there should be a very strict punishment for that. I think that's where we should start from. As
a lawyer, Francis, we hear that bail is free, even though it's not necessarily free. We also hear the policemen. I have had an opportunity to interview a couple of police officers on issues that are pending, especially cult-related activities. Again, back to River State. And they tell you that they carry out investigations, and sometimes they get tip-offs that these people are having initiations, and so they grab them. But a certain big person, in quotes, big man, calls and says, those are my boys, release them. So they cannot necessarily do their jobs. Where does the law come in here?
That takes me to the first, the legal aspect of what is playing out across the country. Section 14, subsection 2B of the 1999 Constitution as amended said that security shall be the paramount project of every government, the security of lives and properties of the citizens. In fact, that underscores the social contract that government have with the citizens. At any point that pact is breached, any government loses its legitimacy. You understand? So it is just by the grace of God that we are not already on the way to Kigali, as in full-blown anarchy.
I mean, I heard somebody saying it today, I think it was a lawyer saying it on radio, that what we have stomached in this country, if it were to be other African countries, will be at war.
Of course, because all the factors that played out in other places where we had such, we've seen it playing out here. So that's why I say it's only to the grace of God that we are still able to manage this this issue. And just like you started saying, when the leaders legitimize banditry or thuggery or cultism by using these young men every electoral cycle to rig their way into power, it becomes, in that process, they arm these guys, they give them money, they give them cars. By the time they come into power, it's always difficult disengaging them. You get? By the time the monies are no longer coming, this guy will have to feed. And in that process, they devise other means to survive. So you see how government tends to find itself in a difficult corner, because it is almost, they are also part of the problem. You understand? Because they were involved in the process of getting these guys on the street. But all of a sudden, it is now so difficult for them to, you understand? That's why you said someone makes a call somewhere, leave them, they're my guys. You understand? So at the turn of other electoral cycle, these guys go to work anymore. So we have a problem whereby our leaders are also the problem behind all of this.
So what do we do? Because if the police says, my hands are tied, our hands are tied, we really want to do our job because these boys are a menace. We want to do something, but we cannot do it. Where do we come here? You're an activist. You are one of those people who advocates for one thing or the other. Where do we start? How do we get the government to, or maybe we the people, get them to be accountable and responsible to us, because if we're losing our lives, if we're living in fear, I tell you what, you cannot be found somewhere in Eleme, if you know River State very well, at a certain time.
Of course.
It's at your own risk.
Of course.
You know, I mean, in Lagos, you can still go home at 1 a.m., hopefully, and be happy.
In some places.
In some places. You know, so if Nigeria has become a place where you tiptoe around about where you live, then we have a problem.
You see, this is something that could be easily solved. Like I keep saying, our security architecture, something is wrong. The job of the Nigerian police is to protect the citizens. But what you have the Nigerian police doing more now is the little number they have, they distribute them amongst so-called VIPs. You go to a bank, you're seeing about 4 or 5 policemen sitting down doing nothing. You're driving on the road, you see somebody coming with a siren, he's pushing you off the road. The next thing you see is a policeman wielding a gun. So I don't know what has happened. You know, I think that, first of all, the present IG should go back and study the one-time IG, Adewusi. He was one of the best. Study his own style of policing. That is one. 2, we need to understand that this whole thing about banditry, cultism, people don't do something that they're not going to make money from. So
it's lucrative, and that's why they get a lot of attention.
So there's something they're benefiting from it. I mean, I was just reading, they said the Lagos State fire boss was kidnapped, you know, with some other people.
Yes.
So we need to have a situation where our police are responsive. Like you said, we need to also have an electoral system that does not involve thuggery. Because it's annoying, it's upsetting. I don't think any Nigerian is happy with what's happening.
But I don't think that these, and I'm sorry, I'm just playing the devil's advocate. I don't see these politicians putting a gun to your head and saying, you must take my money, you must rig the elections, you must take my ballot boxes. No, So we do it out of our own free will. Yes, you might say that we're manipulated because we're kept hungry so that they could give us this handout. Sure. But if we also are smart enough, or we're tired, maybe we're not tired enough, so we're still taking...
Let me put it this way. We need to educate people.
Yes.
The problem we're having in Nigeria today is literacy. People are not educated. A lot of Nigerians are not even aware of their own rights, to start with. We need to do serious voters' education. We should stop voting people because you belong to a particular party. We should begin to think of voting people because of integrity, character, who they are, what they have done in the society. When we do that, you see a lot of these things will reduce. Oh, 3, thirdly, the government needs to create employment.
The government cannot employ everybody, can they?
No. The government needs
are you saying an enabling environment?
No, the government needs to create an enabling environment for employment to be created. And we need to disemphasize our dependence of certificate. That is why things are not moving in this country. Somebody you want to get employed, they'll tell you must have a BSc. Very soon, BSc will become useless in Nigeria. We're probably
talking about masters and PhDs.
Yeah. But you see, most people out there, if they find out that there's dignity in labor, people will do a lot of things. Nigerians are very innovative. Nigerians are very patient. But I'll tell you that the patience of Nigerians with this government, with the state government, is running out.
But is it necessarily, again, and this question is for you, Mr. Nkanibe, is this necessarily about this government? Is it necessarily about the Buhari administration or the Johnson or the Yaradua or the Obasanjo administration? Because you know what they say, the leadership of a people mirror the people themselves.
Of course.
So it's a picture of who we are.
Yes. So
do you not think that we need to self-purge before we throw up the kind of leaders that we already have?
Well, I think it was a man I admire so much, the late Prof. Chinua Achebe, who said in his book, The Trouble with Nigeria, that every nation begets the leadership they deserve. So that validates your the point you're trying to make there. But let me just say this. I try to ask myself, what is this nation's national security strategy? You get? Going to the economic point of, from the economic context of things, what is this nation's national economic philosophy? You get? Nations are built on sound and robust philosophies. But here
we have robust budgets.
Here we have robust, padded budget. That's what we have. Let me just try to get myself again. I'm talking about we have ad hoc systems all over the place. A fire breaks out somewhere, a building falls, the whole country, building. After 4 days, we all go to bed. Nobody cares. You get? Banditry springs up in Zamfara, the whole world, we're going to ban mining, we're going to stop this. After 4 days, so there is no strategy, you understand? In other countries spend money on trying to even predict at every year what kind of national security issues can we face. You understand? We have national security risk managers, people who try to look at the country and say, okay, are we going to experience, let's say, ecological disasters from this part of the country? Are we going to experience security breaches? You understand? And if we can do this, how do we meet some of when
more preemptive and proactive?
Yeah, they are all proactive. You understand? And that all of this goes into it. It forms the bedrock of the security strategy that they have. All of these form part of that that policy that runs from government to government. It is part of the system. So the problem is not Buhari's, Jonathan, is a Nigerian problem. It is a fact. A key fact or factor of our of our leadership.
Well, maybe what we could say is that the problem is the 1999 Constitution,
as amended.
What is amended there? We need.
There are a few things that have been amended.
Let me just say the way it is. We need to restructure this country. Nigeria is long overdue for restructuring. We need to sit down and decide how we want to move forward as Nigeria. The things that are happening in Kaduna, Rivers, Cross River, Zamfara shouldn't happen. It shouldn't really happen in the first place. Like I was telling him, a few minutes back, I said to him, we need to move away from looking at the presidency, blaming the presidency. Mm-hmm. We need to begin to hold our governors, honorable members, senators accountable. Yes. When you hold them accountable, and they are accountable, the presidency will also become accountable. Mm. So,
but the people will
have a structural problem.
But the people will say, these people you want us to hold accountable are unreachable. For example, these senators, these House of Assembly members, these local government chairmen, you only see them when they're asking for your votes. Some constituency offices are shut down. Sometimes you go there and drop stuff, but you never see, sometimes it goes to the bin. How accessible are these leaders that we have? I mean, in the UK, every MP goes back to his constituents. Yeah. And in fact, when they're fighting on the floor, they're telling you, I'm fighting because I want to be able to say this and that to my constituents. Yes. There's a sense of responsibility. But in this part, it's a total departure from what it should be.
Do you know why?
Why?
I'll tell you why. We have a system where those that are elected become lords overnight. They live off the sufferings of the masses. A country where you have a senator earning close to 36 million a month, and a civil servant is begging to earn 30,000 naira a month. In other words, you to take a civil servant 1,200 months to earn the salary, 1 month salary of a senator. We need to sit, like I said, restructuring this country, we need to sit down and say, as a senator, this is what you're supposed to earn. As a president, this is what you're supposed to earn. As a governor, this is what you're supposed to earn. The problem is that people are earning so much. People are earning so much. So the office becomes too lucrative for them to remember that they were voted in. And also, because of the fact that before you get into office in Nigeria, you need to spend. You need to spend so much money. So when they come into power, the first thing they want to do is to recoup their money. I mean, if you look at what's happening in Zamfara, you will laugh. I'll tell you something that will shock you. In 1998, 1999 or 2001, the federal government commissioned a company called Global Minerals to carry out an audit of the mineral sector. And that contract was about 250 million. And they did a very wonderful job. They came up saying that in Nigeria we have 33 viable minerals cut across the country. Zamfara has gold, Kebbi has gold, Zamfara has diamond. You come to the south, Ondo has bitumen. You go to the east, we have coal. Why has government not sat down to look at the way Australia developed their mining sector? South Africa developed their mining sector. In every part of the world, especially in Africa, where mining has taken place, it's not for the benefit of the people. It doesn't bring blessing, it brings curse. Check Ghana.
Oh, South Africa, they're always having miners who are trapped on the ground.
Not only trapped, people get killed. People get displaced. Houses get bombed.
Liberia, Sierra Leone.
What is happening in Zamfara is simple. The bandits, people you call bandits are not bandits. Because those who are mining, they have mercenaries who fight for them. So what they're trying to do is that scare these people away, they take over the land.
I see. All right, because we have just 1 minute. Gentlemen, in one sentence each, what do we do in the interim? Where do we start? Because we have to do something. If not, we're going to be back here in another 2 years talking about the same thing, and I really don't want to do that.
Well, for me, I think this takes us back to the recurrent question of communal policing. You understand? Policing everywhere in the world is local. We don't have a local police system in the country. The locals know themselves better. So when you give them the instruments and to protect themselves, I believe we can begin to get things better on that.
For me, I would say that I'll put it on the table of Mr. President. I want the president to sit down, think well, restructure this country. Once the president is going to do that, he has a political will. President didn't come back second term by cabal. No, there was no cabal. The people voted him in the second term. And I think that he should do the right thing now. God has given him a second opportunity to make Nigeria great. He should restructure this country.
All right, restructuring. Thank you very much, Francis Chilaka, and of course, Raymond Kanebe, for speaking with us on Plus Politics.
Thank you.
We'll take a short break, and when we come back, I'll be giving you my take. Stay with us. Thank you so much. As part of efforts to contain the incessant banditry in Zamfara State and other affected areas, the federal government has suspended mining activities in the area. To this end, operators who engage in mining activities in the affected locations will have their licenses revoked. The Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, announced these measures on Sunday at an emergency press conference called in the office of the Chief of Staff at State House in Abuja.
The operation is aimed at reclaiming every public space under the control of the bandits, arrest and bring to book all perpetrators of the violence in the area and their collaborators, and to achieve a total destruction of all criminal camps and hideouts, and also to mop up all illicit weapons, fueling the violence, and attain a full restoration of law and order in the affected communities. All the foreigners that are within the mining site in this environment are hereby asked to leave the mining site. And a joint effort or task force by the security agencies will be put in place to take over the mining sites. Meanwhile, in the face of intelligence report that has clearly established a strong and glaring nexus between the activities of the armed bandits and illicit miners, with both mutually reinforcing each other, the federal government of Nigeria has decided as follows. Mining activities in Zamfara and its environment are hereby suspended with immediate effect.
It's time for my take. The question, Which way Nigeria? The order of the day has become insurgents, bloodshed, banditry, cultism. We no longer see father, mother, daughter, brother, sister. All we see is pain. All we see is anger. Where do we go from here? How do we stop this? Because in no time, we may all end up dead and gone. Who's going to take over when we're all gone? What stories, what values, what lessons are we teaching our children? That it's okay to take away life and add no value to it? What are our governments doing? We need to make that change today. So, arise, O compatriots. Let's change. Let's make that change today. And that's it on Plus Politics. I'm Mariana Kun. I'll see you tomorrow.